Well, I'm going to try and do a Beehive taillight lesson here. This belongs to a friend of mine. I believe it's the earliest one that they made. There's no screw holes on the top there for the license plate lenses, and there's no screw down here either. And hold on a second. Now you can see on the inside somebody bent these tabs over to hold the glass in place, but it's just flopping around in there. And there's these tabs to hold the top lens in place too. And I got this old book, and it shows there's springs that are supposed to hold that lens in there. 5067-39A. There's a right side and a left side spring, and so I imagine these tabs were meant to hold the spring that held the lens in. I'm only speculating here. Now the second style is listed in this parts book, along with the third style, which takes the rubber gaskets. And we've got a dash 42 part number on a lot of these pieces. And in here is my 41 bike, and I don't know if this taillight came with the bike or not, but you can see there are two screws holding the license plate lens in, and there's also a screw right on the back that's not on that earlier one. So there's definitely two different styles of taillights that I'm in possession of, and we'll do a third over at my friend's house. Well, we might as well let Palmer chime in too. Here's what he has to say about it. You can pause. So here we have the third version of the Beehive taillight with the rubber gaskets. Hold the lenses in. I think these are from 42 on up, and so this is the final version of the Beehive taillight. Okay, so here's what I learned so far. The first Beehive taillight came out with no screws on the back of the housing holding the lens in place, and no screws on the top of the housing holding the other lens in place. They had springs on the side and a gasket on the top, according to the parts book. And then in 1941 or so, I'm thinking, they came out with the tail light that had two screws holding the license plate lens in place, and 2 additional screws holding the Beehive lens in place. Now, when I took this taillight apart, it had some little thin cork gaskets on the side holding it in and or insulating it from the housing, and I haven't seen those in the parts book. So but I know this housing had cork gaskets on the side. So, and then we have the later housing that has the rubber gaskets holding both lenses in place. And now I bought rubber gaskets for this thinking it needed them, and when I tried to put them in place, I cracked that lens, and it's a repop anyway. But so the housings are different for the one that takes the rubber gaskets. They're wider, and that's what I know. I hope you learned something from it. Where it all began, the first Beehive taillight. Notice there's no screws holding the top lens in. There's only the 2 screw holes here to hold the taillight itself in. Notice there's no screw up top to hold the lens in, and there's no screw on the bottom to hold the lens in. This is where it all began. 1939. I think they ran it up to 1940, and then they changed.